This is Charter Local Edition. My name is Brad Pomerance, and we are joined today by Bruce Gibson. He is a member of the Board of Supervisors in San Luis Obispo County, which recently suffered a fairly significant fire known as the Cuesta Fire.
It was a tense time.
Yeah, please.
Ignited by, apparently, by a vehicle, some way or another. Started burning in very steep terrain a couple, 3 weeks ago. And fortunately, with a very quick attack on it, it was held to about 2,500 acres or so, and it's now a piece of history.
But this summer has been very hot, and California has been burning.
California's been burning, the West has been burning.
The West has been burning, and you are a scientist.
Well,
yeah. You are.
Well, yeah, it probably would rather be a firefighter,
okay,
I think,
well stated.
if I had the physical skill.
But let's talk about kind of the science of fire and why we are seeing so many fires this summer.
Well, you know, we know that changing climate is going to enhance the risk. We have hotter, drier, longer seasons. We end up, and they've documented, we have seen more intense wildland fires. Lightning strikes start them in a lot of cases, humans start them in a lot of cases, and you got to react.
With a changing climate, coupled with the drought, I'm not sure if those are connected. That's another conversation. Yeah. How has that impacted the risk of fires in California?
Well, it's up all around. Right. You know, we can look out at our typical chaparral covered mountains and know that the fuel is as dry as it's ever been. I was seeing statistics on that. In my district,
which is North San Luis Obispo County,
the coast and the north coast of our county, we have a unique stand of Monterey pines, a couple thousand acres of them. That have a mortality of closing on 50% right now.
And let's talk about tree death, because this has been a very significant question during this drought. I know there have been some beetles that have been infesting trees, and I guess those beetles are more productive, prolific during the drought.
More active in the warmer weather, less attacked by wet winters as they are, and they have gone. They've gone to work.
And so, is this what's happening in North County?
It's
the beetles
in the Cambria Monterey pine forest. The beetles have wreaked havoc, and we see them take trees from full lush green to trees with little red tips on them, to trees where the needles are all red, to trees where the needles are all brown, and then trees which have no needles. And that happens remarkably quickly.
And how does that play into the risk of fire?
Well, of course, you have all this fuel standing there. And the other side of it is the long-term management of the forest has largely been to keep one's hands off of it. It's been a protection management plan, and that has resulted in a very thick understory. So the worry is that if we do get a source of ignition, we're going to have a very hot fire burning on the fuel load that's relatively close to the ground. The firefighters were talking about 50-foot flames coming off of 6-foot high brush that then gets up into the canopy, and if that canopy is dry and diseased and dead, you have a canopy fire.
And as I understand it, with the intermittent storms we've had, they may feel good, but the problem is that it causes some growth. And so the growth goes for a week or two, and then no rain, it dies. So you get more fuel.
More dead fuel in there. You know, we had a series of storms through the late spring, and we had one in the midst of summer that really didn't alter the balance. It certainly didn't change anything to do with drought conditions toward water supply or even fire hazard, because as soon as that dried out, 2 weeks later, we were probably as worse off as we were.
I want to ask you about this winter. So we hear, the news media, including myself, reports that we may be on the verge of an historic El Nino, a Godzilla El Nino. Now,
so remember what El Nino is. El Nino is simply the ocean temperature off the west coast. An El Nino is not the condition of extra rain. It's associated.
It is.
In many cases, and in some cases not.
But when we look at the temperatures off the coast of Peru and then up, they really are quite
They're
high.
striking.
And I was reading just to the south of us, there's tiny red crabs.
I've seen them.
Right, okay.
So I was out at the Channel Islands
Right.
for a trip in late July, and in the water are hundreds, and in some places thousands, of small red crabs swimming around that are typically residents of Baja California.
Exactly. And so the suggestion is that the waters are warming.
Oh, they're hugely warm.
But,
Yeah.
but here's the question. If we do have an El Nino that causes rains, El Ninos in the past tend to focus on Southern California. You hope they can get farther north. What do we call the Central Coast? Are you more northern or Southern California?
We like to separate ourselves from both.
Both,
Right?
exactly.
We are who we are. You know, I try not to speculate too much on the
Right.
consequences of the El Nino that we're seeing develop right
Okay.
now. We're going to have to react no matter what happens. And if we have an exceptionally wet winter, we're going to have a number of problems,
And
along with the benefit to our water supply.
And I want to ask you about
Yeah.
one of those problems, and
Yeah.
that is potential mudslides.
Absolutely.
Especially in the area that burned.
Absolutely.
Because that, I mean, it's a perfect storm, if I can
Yeah,
use that
yeah,
cliche,
yeah.
for literally the wet dirt to rush off. And I understand as well that while we'd love to have the rain recharge our depleted ground
Right.
aquifers, sometimes when the dirt is so dry, it can't suck it up.
Well, it'll absorb till it gets to be a mudslide. But
Right.
what happens in a mudslide often is you get so much fine material, clay, silty
Okay.
material, that runs down into the creek bottoms and sort of clogs up the gravel.
I understand.
Keeps it from absorbing through the creek bottoms. Now, we were very lucky with the Cuesta fire that fire was stopped before it got over into the watershed that feeds Lopez Lake. It's a
Okay.
major water supply. You get a couple of problems. One of them is water quality. The other is silt going into the lake, silting
Right.
in the lake. So it was quite a heroic effort that drew the line, stopped that fire, so we don't have to deal with those consequences no matter what.
If we do see rains, do we have enough storage in this area, the Central Coast, Nacimiento, Lopez?
Sure.
Because I know those storage facilities are very low.
Are low. So, Nacimiento is about a quarter full.
Right.
Whale Rock Reservoir in my district near Cayucas is under 40% full. Santa Margarita Lake, Salinas Reservoir is less than 20% full. So we have storage, and it would be a
Right.
wonderful thing to see those reservoirs fill up and spill. That
Spill?
would be an extraordinary
Right.
winter, given how far down we are.
Here's what's remarkable to me is that even if we have a monster El Nino, and I guess that could be seen as double the amount of rainfall that we would expect in a normal year,
Yep.
we'd still be in deficit.
Well, we'd still very likely still be in drought, amazingly. This is what I've heard from those who track what constitutes drought. We have multiple years of above average rainfall that we're going to need to dig ourselves out of this hole. Now, the Central Coast is the epicenter of the drought. When you watch the drought maps, the big red spot appeared first
Literally.
over our county and is spread out now all over the state. So we'll see. A big rain winter coming upon us is going to take down some of these dead trees.
Right.
With the winds and the soft ground, we're going to have a whole different set of problems. So always something to deal with, and we're working feverishly on all fronts.
To be
on that.
continued. He
Indeed.
is Bruce Gibson. He is a member of the Board of Supervisors in San Luis Obispo County, where we are today. My name is Brad Pomerance, and this is Charter Local Edition.